Hi everyone, this is Katie, and in this video I'm just going to be giving an update about our integration process and some things we're struggling with around trigger days. I'd also like to note that if you hear background noise, it may be the sound of my stomach rumbling. I'm having stomach issues with acid reflux as a result, I think, of being triggered by trigger dates. So, as some of you may know, tomorrow is our birthday. And 2 days ago was another trigger date relating to some stuff from my programming as a child. And of course, in 3 days from now is a holiday that I will not mention by name, but one that causes a lot of trauma to many ritual abuse survivors around the world. So for us, traditionally, the end of this month is one of the hardest times of the year, probably only outweighed by the end of December. So we're doing a lot of things to cope. We wanted to actually make our next video simply be our next healthy coping update and talk about some things that we're doing to cope, specifically with physical self-care, with hygiene. We're focusing on showering every day that we can and doing various other things to take care of our body. And we're also focusing on playing the game Magic the Gathering, which I know can be a trigger for some survivors of RAMC. For us, it's something that brings us healing and peace. We really, really love the game. We don't play in any groups, so we don't really go out and engage in any kind of social events because we're afraid of being accessed, and we just have a lot of anxiety around that in general. But we play with our partner who also loves the game, and so that's something we've been doing a lot to try to cope with the trigger dates, and it's helping. But we're not going to go too much more into that because we want to save that for separate videos. And we just want to actually focus on just talking about trigger dates in general and, like I said, what's going on with our integration process. So in our last video, we mentioned that we had had a recent serious trauma and we had shattered in Kayvon's subsystem, and Kayvon was working to repair himself around that. I should actually say repair themselves, because not everyone in Kayvon's system identifies as male, although their predominant gender identity is masculine. But that's actually shifting a bit. They're becoming a bit more feminine, because not only have they been integrating themselves around the trauma that just happened, but they've actually been moving into deeper integration with Karen, which is a huge deal for us. I guess this is something that's been happening for a long time. They've been sharing memories and integrating on more surface levels, but now they're moving deeply into core integration, which is its own thing and is just really freeing when it's done at a pace that we can handle. So up until 2 days ago, we were able to really just deeply integrate within those systems. But the trigger dates have actually made it difficult. And while they're continuing to integrate, we've started hosting in slightly different altars in order to it's just something that's been necessary for us in order to manage the triggers that have come up. But that being said, we are still moving forward with this. And we are finding that while, like I said, Kayvon's system is becoming a little more feminine, most of Karen's femininity was really toxic femininity as a result of beta programming. And so Kayvon's still remaining pretty masculine in the way that they experience themselves. I hope that makes sense. I also just switched there for a moment, and I'm worried that I may have misgendered Kayvon. I'm not sure, I don't remember, so I apologize if I just referred to them in the masculine. But I know that they are still, like I said, predominantly masculine in the way they identify and experience themselves. So one thing I want to say about that too is that a lot of what's going on with their integration between Kayvon and Karen is around sex and sexual identity. And both of them are deeply opening up to the sexual orientations of the other, and they're fusing into a much more simply pansexual and gender non-binary experience. So this is cool. This is really good, and I would go more into it, but as it is, I don't feel comfortable, so I'm just going to leave it at that for now. That is something that I want to say, is that as a survivor of severe sexual trauma, and as a queer person, and as just a really sexual person in general, I have a lot that I've wanted to say on this channel about sex positivity and sexual health, as well as healing from sexual trauma. And I've just simply had too much inhibition because people can be really creepy on the internet, and I'm afraid to open myself up. But I do want to let you guys know who are watching this that those are really important parts of our life that we really do want to speak about, and we think could be really helpful for others. So it's something that we are consistently working on, and we hope that eventually we'll be able to do entire video series on sexual health and DID in relationships and deprogramming from beta and reclaiming our true sexual orientation and so on. These are things that we really do want to speak on. We're still traumatized, and we're still learning how to deal with really sketchy people who can be really inappropriate with us in contacting us online. So that being said, I guess I did want to say a few things about trigger dates also. Something has come up in the DID community around ritual abuse trigger dates that most of you who watch my channel probably aren't aware of, but those who are in the DID community are. And I'm only sharing this because I want to just speak on what's been on my mind around all of this lately, as this has really had an impact on me, what's happened in the community. But I'm not trying to participate in any kind of drama or controversy. Things got ugly with this situation, and I'm not trying to be a part of that. I just want to talk a bit about what happened because it's really influencing how I'm handling all this stuff right now. So, for those of you who don't know, somebody with a somewhat large following on YouTube who has DID made an event called System Pride Day that they put on a very triggering date for survivors of ritual abuse. And survivors of ritual abuse got very upset about this and spoke out against them for doing this. It wasn't just the date, it was also a flag that they made to go with it that had very triggering colors, specifically relating to the month that we are in right now, and the holiday at the end of this month that I need not name. I don't know if they specifically meant for the colors to be associated with that, but that's definitely part of what the trigger was for me, and what I'm guessing was part of the trigger for others. And so, like I said, the RA survivor community spoke up about this, and then things just got ugly. There was real contention between RA survivors and DID survivors who do not have or know that they have ritual trauma. And I don't wish to generalize, honestly, about everyone in either of these communities. That's not what I mean to do. That's just kind of the gist of what happened. So, yeah, I'm not saying that every member of each of these communities took these sides or spoke out or had these opinions. This is just kind of the gist of what happened. And it really brought up a lot for RAMC survivors within the DID community, like myself. And even though I pretty much stay out of the DID community and focus on whistleblowing and just sharing my own experience and building one-on-one connections with specifically RAMC survivors who I feel safe with, I was still impacted by this. And I know that others were as well, who probably consider themselves to be kind of on the fringes of this community. And it's just really brought a lot up for me around just what it means to be an RA survivor and what it means to have these dates in the year that just cause so much pain. You know, I think that some people really don't realize what RA survivors really mean when we talk about trigger dates. When the trigger date happened 2 days ago, I didn't just get hit with activators on that day. I didn't just get reminded of the trauma. I actually, at an exact specific time the night before the date, suddenly switched states and went into panic and started getting very dissociated, and some programming started coming up. To my knowledge, no accessing happened. This is a trigger date surrounding a specific person in a specific group within the cult I was in, who I have not had contact with, to my knowledge, in a long time. But still, at a very specific time, the night before, I suddenly got hit with these programs. And I just don't think that that's on a lot of people's radar when they think about RA trigger dates. I think a lot of people think that it's just a reminder of bad things that happened. I don't think that everybody realizes that actual programs can hit at actual specific times on these dates. And they can affect people who have been healing and deprogramming for a long time. It's been almost 5 years since I woke up from the mind control. And while I get way less activated on trigger dates than I used to, at the end of August, have multiple trigger dates, and also at the end of September have multiple trigger dates surrounding specifically family stuff and stuff from this specific group within the cult that I was in. And I can't remember if it was the end of August or the end of September this year, where I had massive amounts of meltdowns and was getting activated all over the place and was reliving trauma, and only my partner and I and anyone who was recording what happened from within our apartment, as I don't deny that the CIA is probably watching what I do in my apartment. Anybody who wasn't seeing it in that moment probably has no idea what I experienced, but it was really, really bad. And while, again, to my knowledge, no accessing happened at that time, still, I just think that people can deeply underestimate the power of these dates for survivors, including survivors who've been healing for some time. And I was really reminded of that by what happened with this whole Pride Day thing and the way that non-RAMC survivors responded who had DID. So, yeah, at the end of this month right now, I'm dealing with trigger dates, and I want any RA survivors who've been really impacted by what happened with the Pride Day thing to know that you have my support. And while I'm not trying to get involved in any controversy within the DID community around this, I just want you to know that you have my empathy and understanding. I know how bad these dates can be, and I know how much grace you all need around it.